We must now take this fight to the Locust. We will go to where they live and where they breed, and we will destroy them. This is the day we take the battle to the heart of the enemy. This is the day that we correct the course of human history. This is the day we ensure our survival as a species. Soldiers of the COG, my fellow gears, go forth and bring back the hope of humanity!
Operation Hollowstorm was a massive military counterattack which aimed directly to kill the remaining Locusts that survived the light mass offensive. The attack would last for 2 days and would be a victory for the COG, though with thousands of gears killed, captured or missing in the attack on the Hollows. The most devastating loss was the last COG stronghold, Jacinto City, which was sunk in a last-ditch attempt to destroy the Locusts by flooding the Hollows. On the morning of First Frost 14 AE, thousands of gears were in attendance at Reitman Base in Jacinto City, where Chairman Prescott delivered a motivational speech on the history of Serra and the Locust War. After speaking on the recent attacks of Tolan and Montevado, Prescott rallied the gears to enter the Inner Hollow and take the fight to the Locust Horde's home. Gears were transported by numerous King Ravens, armored personnel carriers, centaurs, and assault derricks, and prepared for departure at staging grounds outside Jacinto City. After the arrivals and repairs, the massive escort convoy launched. Half of the convoy drove through the Stromson forest, while the other half took the Landown highway. Upon arriving in Stromson forest, Centaur 09 began to clear the path and reported no hostiles. Immediately after, the Locusts began their assault on the convoy with Nemesis mortars. On the Landown highway, KR-41 was hit and destroyed by a Nemesis mortar while escorting the assault derricks. One of the assault derricks attempted to pass Rig 314, but was hit by a Nemesis mortar which made it slam into the side of Rig 314 and fell off the ledge. One mortar strike hit the side of the cliff and caused a large boulder to roll down on the Landown highway, nearly knocking Rig 314 off the ledge. Marcus Phoenix used the chain gun on the roof of the assault derrick to take out the remaining Nemesis mortars. After taking out the mortars, a squadron of Reavers attacked and took out Rig D11. With Rig 314 being one of the last rigs on the ridge, the Reavers focused fire on them. Marcus, Dom, and Carmine were able to repel the Reaver attacks. KR-36 reported the path towards Landown was clear and would help defend ground forces. Among them was Rig D28, which was piloted by Private Henny and boarded by Damon Baird, Private Tanner, and Augustus Coltrane. There was also Rig D77, boarded by Ty Caliso, which was acting as the rear guard rig in the convoy. Rig 314 broke down and was forced to stop for repair, which slowed down the COG advance and left them vulnerable to mortar attacks and Locust ambushes. As Delta 1 guarded Dizzy as he repaired the rig, several emergence holes opened in the area, releasing Locust drones. As the squad struggled to defend the rig, several rigs and centaurs, including Rig D28, came to reinforce Delta 1. However, most of the rigs and centaurs defending Rig 314 were destroyed by Nemesis mortars and drones. The squad was able to fend off the Locust attack despite heavy losses, and Rig 314 managed to get repaired, joining Rig D28 and G53 back into the Stromson forest. As the assault derricks neared Faro Bridge to cross the river to Landown, the convoy was attacked by a coordination of large emergence holes in their path. Thousands of drones and boomers were released onto the surface and accompanied by a Brumach that destroyed several rigs. Rig G53 was hijacked by drones using grappling hooks. Rig 314 escaped the attack, but several grapplers attempted to board and hijack the rig. Delta 1 was able to secure the rig from the Locust hijackers. Rig G53 returned on the highway hijacked with Locust drones. With only one derrick being able to fit across Faro Bridge, the Locust on Rig G53 attempted to prevent Rig 314 from crossing by pushing them to the side to drive them off the cliff into the ravine. Marcus attempted to shoot at the Locust driver, but Dizzy informed him that the windshields were bulletproof. Dizzy began to repeatedly drive into the side of the rig to continually break the windshield. Rig G53's windshield managed to break, which allowed Marcus to kill the Locust pilot, and Dizzy was able to push the rig off the side into the ravine, and the squad successfully crossed the bridge. After the mass convoy of assault derricks crossed Faro Bridge, Lieutenant Anya Stroud and Control began to determine the launch coordinates as the rig started to arrive at Landown. Multiple Brumacs emerged from the Stromson forest on the south side of Landown to attack the group of rigs on the highway. One rig was destroyed by a Brumac's rocket launcher, another Brumac emerged from the forest and began to attack Rig 314, but was shot and killed by a Centaur. Lieutenant Stroud ordered to commence deployment, but a patrolling King Raven requested reinforcements before being shot down by a Brumac. KR-36 informed Control that they were being overrun and recommended that they evacuate all rigs to Landown. Stroud complied and ordered all rigs to break off from each other and race for Landown to avoid the Locust onslaught. During the evacuation, Marcus managed to kill the Brumac that shot down the escort King Raven. Dozens of Locust drones entered the highway and began to grapple on the rigs. Rig 314 and others were able to push back the grapplers, but another rig was flipped over and destroyed by a Brumac. Rig 314 continued to drive and escape the Brumac, but was then met with a Corpser in front of them but was shot back down into the hollow. Another Corpser climbed the ledge and jumped down onto a rig, taking it underground and destroying it. A Brumac was stationed at the end of the highway leading directly into Landown and opened fire on the convoy, but Marcus ordered Dizzy to keep driving towards it. Marcus fired the chain gun at the Brumac with supporting fire from Dominic Santiago and Private Carmine. They were able to destroy the Brumac's wrist-mounted chain guns, rocket launcher, and face, completely incapacitating it. Dizzy then accelerated the assault derrick and struck the Brumac, killing it and clearing the route to Landown for the convoy. With the main lines of Locust defenses in Stromson Forest now broken, the Gears began the difficult task of clearing the Tickers and Nemesis stationed in the area in order to allow the King Ravens, Centaurs, APCs, and Assault Derricks to enter safely. However, it was too late for Rig D77, as it was destroyed by Tickers upon entering Landown. Ty Caliso was the only Gear that survived, who then joined Delta 1 aboard Rig 314. Lieutenant Stroud then ordered Delta 1 to head towards the monument in the center of Landown, as it was the best place to drill. When Ty informed that the Tickers destroyed his rig and believed that the whole area was infested, Marcus ordered Dizzy to stay in Rig 314 while he, Dom, Ty, and Private Carmine cleared the area of Tickers and escort Dizzy to the center of town. The squad was able to sweep the area of Tickers, and Dizzy managed to drive down the road as several other rigs drove into Landown towards the deployment zone. Lieutenant Stroud then informed Delta that KR-51 spotted Nemesis occupying the local airspace. Up the road was a Locust squad stationed at a fuel station as Nemesis were occupying the airspace above it. Delta then began to eliminate the Nemesis and Locust drones, but were under heavy fire from an enforced Troika nest on their left. Centaur 49 arrived from behind the Troika nest and was able to shoot it down into a sinkhole. Rig D28 was then able to turn the street and drive towards the center of town. As Delta 1 entered the dark tunnel that leads to the center of town, the squad fought off Tickers and a Reaver that was waiting for them at the end of the tunnel. During the assault on Landown, Locust mortar squads near the center of town began to bombard the streets. Rig 314 had to remain in the nearby tunnel while Delta 1 took them out. The squad split up between inside a hotel and on the rooftops of the other side of the street. Marcus, Dom, Ty, and Carmine took out the mortar squads from these positions. Once the street was clear, Dizzy drove Rig 314 down the road. However, a Brumac approached from the adjacent tunnel which nearly destroyed the rig. Delta 1 then killed the Brumac with mortar fire. Dizzy then picked up the squad and continued to the deployment zone. The surviving assault derricks arrived at the center of town and began to align for launch while Centaurs established their defense while deploying. During this time, multiple emergence holes opened within the graveyard of the town and multiple Locust drones and boomers started attacking the derricks. KR-18 arrived on scene to assist the defense while they prepared to deploy against the Locust attack. Delta 1 was able to fight off some of the Locust forces with a mortar and the assault derrick's chain gun. However, Locust forces began to destroy some of the derricks. Rig D28 was partially destroyed and Private Henny was killed in action, which forced Coltrane to advise Baird and the rest of the squad to deploy. Delta 1 remained to defend the other derricks. Grapplers attempted to hijack the derrick but were eliminated. A Locust mortar crew and squad of boomers arrived on scene. Rig 314 was heavily damaged during the attack but survived after the mortars and boomers were eliminated. A squadron of Reavers then began to attack Delta and the other rigs. As the area was becoming overrun by Locust and the Gears taking too many casualties, Lieutenant Stroud ordered Delta to deploy immediately. Marcus then ordered Dizzy to prepare the grind lifts. After taking out the last Reaver, Dizzy managed to activate the grind lifts. Before Delta could deploy, Scourge emerged and cut a Centaur tank in half with his dual chainsaw staff. As Delta began to deploy, Scourge boarded Rig 314 in order to stop them. Dizzy then engaged Scourge to allow Delta to start drilling. Marcus and Dom attempted to get out of the grind lift restraints to help, but were unsuccessful. However, Ty was able to jump off the grind lift and assist Dizzy. Ty and Scourge then engaged in a chainsaw duel as Marcus, Dom, and Carmine deployed into the inner hollow. During the fight, Scourge was able to overpower Ty and pressed his chainsaw staff down on him. As Ty held off Scourge, he told Dizzy to go. Dizzy was then able to escape and Ty was taken as prisoner by Scourge. Thousands of gears began to deploy into the inner hollow, but many grind lifts went off course due to the granite bedrock and boulders in Sarah's crust, causing many gears to be separated from their own squads. Sigma 1 was somewhat successful in deploying as Coltrane was able to deploy with most of his squad but was separated from Baird and Private Tanner. Alpha 1 managed to deploy successfully but lost contact with the surface partly due to Nemesis infestation by a Cedar, in which Alpha 1 managed to track down and eliminate and re-establish communications with Control and other squads. Alpha 7, which was led by Jason Stratton, deployed successfully and began the assault. Delta 1 successfully deployed into the inner hollow, but Marcus and Dom were separated from Benjamin Carmine. Carmine then contacted Marcus and informed him that he went off course and was without Ty, but he could see Echo 5's grind lift zone up ahead. Marcus ordered him not to engage the enemy, but to defend his position. As Marcus and Dom began to make their way to Carmine and Echo 5, large Locust forces began to attack. Upon arriving at the drop zone, all members of Echo 5 were killed by Locust forces. Marcus and Dom were able to eliminate the threat from behind enemy lines and rescue Carmine. While Marcus was requesting directions deeper into the inner hollow, he was informed by Anya Stroud that access into the inner hollow was beyond the cavern wall 30 meters thick. Marcus then had Jack repair the parallel grind lift in order to dig through the cavern wall. During the repair, another wave of Locust forces emerged in the cavern which Delta was able to fend off. Jack then successfully repaired the grind lift and Delta used it to dig through the cavern wall in order to reach the inner hollow network. Omega 1 deployed on the other side of the cavern wall and was immediately attacked by Locust forces, wounding and killing many of the gears. When Delta 1 accessed the other side of the cavern wall, they found Omega 1 requesting for reinforcements as they were attacked and about to be overrun by Locust drones and Reavers. While Delta 1 assisted Omega 1, Jay Stratton of Alpha 7 spotted Locust forces and requested assistance. Gamma 3 then deployed into the inner hollow. Despite drilling into an underground lake, they were able to safely deploy. Omega and Delta continued to fight in the cavern as Tickers and Boomers arrived in the area. With Delta's assistance, Omega 1 was able to fight off the Locust attack and began to secure the area in order to move their wounded. Meanwhile, Echo 9 deployed in the inner hollow, which was led by Sergeant Jonathan Harper. Echo 9 quickly engaged the enemy, but were soon overrun and captured. Sergeant Harper was then taken aboard a torture barge and transported to a Locust prison camp near the Nexus Highway, where he and hundreds of other captured Gears and Stranded were imprisoned and tortured. As the assault on the inner hollow began, the Locust became desperate to hurry their plans to sink cities on the Jacinto Plateau. Control then contacted Delta 1 and informed them of massive seismic activity. Fearing Lima might befall the same fate as Tolan and Montevado, Control had Delta and nearby squads attempt to find the source of the activity. As Delta 1 continued into the inner hollow, they discovered a large worm-like creature burrowing through the cavern walls. This creature is known as the Rockworm, an indigenous hollow creature that is nearly indestructible due to its rock-like skin. The rockworms were only dangerous when provoked in their path, but otherwise were not threatened, but instead focused on hunting for glowing fruit which hung from the cavern ceiling. Delta 1 then continued beneath Lima City. Splitting up between Marcus and Dom with Carmine, the three engaged in a Locust checkpoint armed with a Troika heavy machine gun. A rockworm burrowed through the cavern wall and provided Delta 1 cover as they fought the Locust staging area. After eliminating the checkpoint, Delta continued into the cavern. An emergence hole opened in front of them, but was again provided cover by a rockworm as they repelled the Locust attack. After the emergence hole, Delta 1 came to a narrow ridge adjacent to another staging area manned by snipers and defended by Reavers. Delta used a rockworm for cover as they fought the snipers and Reavers while navigating down the ridge. After eliminating the sniper checkpoint, Delta 1 arrived at another staging area and took out all of the enemies, which included drones, Reavers, Tickers, Wretches, and Boomers. After eliminating the main staging area, Delta received contact that Alpha 2 deployed across the river from them. However, immediately after deploying, Locust began to attack their side of the river using heavy mortar and turret fire from the staging area near Delta. Delta eliminated the staging area and used the mortars and Troika to defend Alpha 2 from the Locust across the river. Dozens of Locust drones and Reavers attacked Alpha 2, but with the assistance from Delta 1, they managed to advance successfully. Immediately after the area was cleared of enemies, the cavern became unstable as the giant creature known as the Riftworm burrowed through the cavern. As Delta 1 continued into the hollows to search for the Riftworm, they discovered a Locust citadel guarded by a Cantus. Using its vocals, the Cantus summoned a squad of drones, a pack of tickers, and a rockworm. Delta 1 engaged the enemy, but the Cantus would be able to revive down Locust drones from afar by using its voice. Delta eliminated the Cantus and the drones retreated. As Delta advanced into the Locust temple, the squad split up between the upper floor and the ground level to get the drop on any Locust inside. Upon navigating the citadel, a stationed troika on the ground floor opened fire with no available cover. From the upper floor, Delta 1 was able to shoot the glowing fruit from the cavern ceiling in order to track the rockworm for Delta to use as cover against the troika. A pack of wretches attacked on the upper floor but were all eliminated. Delta pulled a switch that allowed both upper and ground floors to open. Delta 1 then regrouped in the rear atrium of the citadel where Cantuses and drones attacked, reinforced by boomers and tickers, which were all eliminated by Delta. Upon exiting the rear of the citadel, the squad witnessed Ketor Scourge aboard his Hydra mount, chanting from the Cantus scrolls, which summoned the Riftworm, which burrowed right in front of Delta and sank Ilima City. This is when the Coalition realized that the Locusts were using the giant Riftworm creature to sink the cities. Upon entry into the sinkhole, Delta realized that they were sinking cities that surrounded Jacinto in order to weaken the plateau of granite bedrock in order to dig in and sink Jacinto City. KR-54 entered the sinkhole and began to carry Charlie 9 to the surface, but was shot down and crash-landed in the ruins of the sinkhole. The pilot survived and was able to light green smoke to signal for help. Delta 1 began a search and rescue for the survivors of KR-54's crash. Upon traveling in the Ilima sinkhole, the Locusts were continuing to hunt and slaughter surviving civilians using blood mounts. Delta 1 was contacted by 54's pilot, coughing from the smoke and requesting assistance as the Locusts were incoming on Charlie 9's location. Delta informed him that they were on their way, but Coltrane warned Marcus over comms to stay away from the down chopper as there were Locust ambushes all over the area. As Delta followed the smoke flare, they arrived at the down chopper, but it was too late. All members of 54 and Charlie 9 were killed. Delta was then ambushed by more drones, but were rescued by Coltrane. Regrouping with Delta 1, Cole revealed that his entire squad was killed except for Baird and Private Tanner and was looking for them after receiving a message from them nearby. As Delta continued to search the tunnel nearby where the message was coming from, they found Private Tanner deceased, but Baird was alive being held in a prisoner pod. When Baird was freed, he explained to the squad that the Locusts were taking humans as prisoners, taking them deeper into the hollow to be processed, which was the Locust method of torture. Delta 1's new priority was now to find any other prisoners and free them from captivity. Within the tunnels were multiple torture barges, as Baird pointed out that they were being used to transport and torture prisoners. Delta then opened fire at the drones, boomers, and grinders on the barge. After clearing the lower deck, Delta went into the prison area but found no prisoners. The upper deck was then cleared of enemies, and the squad hijacked the barge. As Delta drove the barge in the inner hollow, a squadron of Reavers and nearby torture barges attacked the squad. The torture barge then collided into another barge that was docked. The squad then boarded the other barge and cleared the upper deck of drones and searched the prison area below. Upon opening the cells, Marcus found Ty Caliso, who had gone MIA during the assault on Landown. Marcus then handed Ty a Nasher shotgun to join the squad. However, due to Ty's mental state and the extreme pain from the Locust processing, he turned the gun on himself. Marcus was visibly shaken and Delta 1 continued down to the lower deck to continue the fight. As Delta continued into the hollow, they found a suitable area to contact control. Marcus then notified them about the Locust taking people as prisoners, which Anya mentioned that they have been receiving similar reports. Anya then instructed Delta 1 that they now have a new objective and to move to the extraction point where a King Raven will be arriving. Upon re-entering the Ilima sinkhole, Dom spotted a 3-story building that would be high enough for the King Raven extract. Delta then ascended the building and reached the top floor with an open roof. Carmine then lit the green smoke signal for the Raven pickup. However, a large Locust battalion spotted the smoke and climbed the building. During the lengthy firefight with the Locust, KR-19 spotted the smoke and arrived on the scene. As the Raven was preparing to land, the Riftworm began to devour the ruins of the Ilima sinkhole. Marcus, Dom, Baird, and Coltrane boarded the Raven, but Carmine remained on the roof fighting the Locust. He He was then shot in the shoulder and retreated to KR-19. Just as Delta-1 took off, a boulder flung by the Riftworm struck the tail of the Raven, causing it to spin, which caused Carmine to fall out of the Raven and into the mouth of the Riftworm, which then devoured KR-19 and Delta-1 completely whole. Marcus, Baird, and Coltrane survived being devoured and awoke within the large intestine of the Riftworm, surrounded by rubble of the debris from Lima. Dom was found unconscious at first, but then woke up. Coltrane suggested cutting their way out of the Riftworm, but Marcus advised that they kill it by destroying the heart before escaping, as it was their only chance of stopping the worm from sinking other cities. Traversing the large intestine, the Gears were forced to navigate a series of massive grinding teeth that were capable of instantly crushing them. After dodging through the digestive teeth, the Gears arrived at the small intestine, where large spikes covered in stomach acid protruded from. The squad was then swarmed by a pack of Nemesites that protect the Riftworm by devouring potentially life-threatening living organisms. Delta discovered several Nemesites devouring Benjamin Carmine and dragged him into a pool of stomach acid as Delta shot at them. After Carmine's death, Coltrane shot at the large uvula hanging in the small intestine, causing the Riftworm to vomit a wall of debris it had eaten. Delta escaped the remainder of the small intestine by avoiding and crossing over the acidic spikes, shooting numerous sphincters to open and allowing them through, and cutting open the membrane that connected the small intestine to the stomach. The stomach became a narrow bridge with either side filled with pools of deadly stomach acid. The bridge was also covered in stomach acid by the stomach's acid pumps. Delta Squad was able to navigate the bridge by shooting at the tip of the stomach's pumps, temporarily stopping them from spraying stomach acid as they passed through. Delta-1 arrived at the lungs of the Riftworm, which were full of toxic and blinding gas. The squad had to quickly navigate the already darkened lungs as the toxic gas increasingly weakened their vision. Before suffocating to death, Marcus was able to locate the exit and cut through the membrane to the sternum of the Riftworm. Arriving at the sternum, the squad found the first Riftworm heart and cut 2 of its arteries with the chainsaw bayonet, killing the heart and causing the chamber to flood with blood. After escaping the chamber, the Gears began to hear another heartbeat, realizing that there were 2 hearts in the Riftworm. Arriving at the second heart, Delta-1 was attacked by another swarm of Nemesites as they cut all 3 of its arteries, which filled the chamber with blood. However, the squad began to hear another heartbeat. Determined to kill the Riftworm, Marcus ordered to destroy as many hearts as it would take. Arriving at the third and final heart in a massive chamber, multiple swarms of Nemesites attacked the squad. While holding off the Nemesites, the Gears had to cut each of the 4 arteries at a time. Marcus was finally able to cut the last artery and the last heart of the Riftworm was destroyed. The chamber began to flood with its blood, nearly drowning Delta-1. The Riftworm emerged from the hollow out onto the surface and fell over to its death. Delta-1 chainsawed into the side of the Riftworm from within, causing a large part of its chest to burst open, freeing the Gears in a massive bloodfall. Marcus then requested a pickup at their location. However, when the King Raven arrived, it dropped off a Centaur instead. Colonel Victor Hoffman then informed Delta-1 that while Operation Hollowstorm continued, he admits that the COG High Command had insufficient intel on the location of the Locust stronghold. Desperate to find the Locust stronghold and take out their leader, Chairman Prescott declassified an intelligence file on the New Hope research facility. Hoffman explained to Delta that this decommissioned COG outpost may have intel on where exactly the Locust stronghold is and possibly more intel on the Locust Queen. Delta-1 then began to drive into the Kadar Valley to begin the mission. When Marcus and Dom were investigating the outpost, they reached the end of a long hallway with a circular door and monitors went online with the face and voice of Dr. Niall Sampson, the famed geneticist and former director of the facility. After being denied access, Marcus contacted Baird, who was outside guarding the Centaur with Coltrane, to prepare a blast to open the door. Marcus placed the charge at the foot of the door and detonated it, blasting the thick circular door back and allowing access to the rest of the outpost. After going through the facility and shutting down extremely lethal security systems, Marcus and Dom entered the genetics lab where they found stasis tanks holding unknown creatures. They then found a room with a computer terminal where Jack was able to bypass Dr. Sampson's security system, which provided them access to a video diary created by Sampson. This video revealed that Sampson was being shut down by COG Chairman Monroe for unethical research, and Sampson was planning to relocate his test subjects to a facility in Mount Kadar to continue his work. He also explained that some subjects would be left behind, which were known as sires, and would be guarded by a semi-sentient security system based on Dr. Sampson's personality. After obtaining a possible lead on the Locust stronghold, the sires were awoken by Jack's tampering of the security system. the Sires began to break out of their stasis tanks and attack Delta 1. Marcus and Dom managed to escape by killing dozens of Sires and retreated inside the security system mainframe and shutting down the security system. With the destination found to be Mount Kadar, Delta 1 began to make their way back to the Centaur but were met with Locust that invaded the building. The squad was able to fight off the attack all while dodging a lethal Razor hailstorm and made it back to the Centaur. Before the squad could leave, Baird needed to make repairs on the Centaur after taking damage from the storm. While repairing the Centaur, a group of Reavers attacked Delta 1. The squad took out the Reavers and made their way to Mount Kadar. Delta 1 arrived in Kadar Valley in the early morning hours within a Centaur. It was made clear to the Coalition that the Locust stronghold, aka Nexus, was somewhere beneath Mount Kadar, and thousands of gears began heading towards the area. However, the exact location of Nexus was unknown. Delta 1 was ordered to personally enter Mount Kadar through a cave entrance at the end of an old logging road to locate Nexus and activate Jack's beacon to mark the exact location. The Locusts were aware of Delta 1's arrival and sent numerous troops and used Nemesis as mortars against them as Delta crossed the frozen lakes that surrounded Mount Kadar. Delta 1 was then successful in terminating the Cedars that were carrying out the mortar attacks and continued to the end of the logging road where a large cave entrance was being guarded by Locust soldiers. Delta 1 was able to defeat the troops and collapse the fortress, gaining access inside Mount Kadar. Once inside, Delta 1 was met with many creatures of the Hollow guarding the way to Nexus, including 3 Corpsers and 2 Brumoks which attacked the Centaur, but Delta 1 was able to eliminate the threats. The Centaur then approached the underground lake of Mount Kadar and encountered a stranded group led by a man named Chaps, as it was becoming popular for stranded groups to camp underground due to the surface being constantly attacked by Locust raids. Chaps then offered intelligence that Nexus was only across the lake. With this information, Marcus ordered Baird and Coltrane to evacuate the stranded to the surface while he and Dom continued on foot. Before departing, Dom asked Chaps about the information regarding his missing wife Maria. Chaps revealed that she was possibly part of another stranded group in the caves led by a man named Stu, but the entire group was captured and taken to the labor camp next to the Locust Highway. Marcus and Dom then traveled to the highway to find Nexus. As they continued, they were attacked by a patrolling Locust squad using gunboats on the lake. When Marcus and Dom made their way to the end of a pier to find a boat to cross the lake, a Locust gunboat crashed into the pier, causing the pier to break and float into the water. Marcus and Dom managed to hijack one of the gunboats to cross the lake, but were then attacked by a Leviathan. Marcus was then able to kill the beast by throwing a grenade down its throat. The two then continued down the lake and found a back entrance to the Nexus Highway. After finding the highway, Marcus and Dom witnessed Locust troops heading west, which Marcus then suggested that they follow them. However, Dom reminded Marcus that the labor camp that Maria could be at was located at the highway near the dam. Marcus told Dom that they needed to stick to the mission and not jeopardize getting killed and failing to end the war. However, after Dom reminded Marcus of when he attempted to rescue his father during the fall of Aphira, he agreed to help Dom search for Maria. After navigating the dam, Delta 1 discovered the labor camp at the foot of the dam and neutralized the outside forces guarding the prison and located a prisoner database on a computer terminal. Using Jack, Dom was able to find Maria's file, solidifying Chap's intel and her location within the prison. Marcus and Dom then followed a Locust patrol on rounds inside the prison and checked for the correlating Locust terminals for Maria's cell block. After following the patrol, Delta 1 was able to locate Maria's cell block. Marcus and Dom fought off a Locust attack while Jack searched for Maria's cell. Eventually, Jack found Maria's cell and opened it for Dom. Maria emerged from the cell in a vegetative state as a victim of processing. Dom then put Maria out of her misery with his bolt-action pistol. After letting Dom grieve the loss of his wife, Marcus regrouped with him and they eventually found Nexus. Trying to figure out where the Queen would be, they set their sights on the tower in front of them. Marcus then told Dom that they need to move in deeper before deploying the beacon since the COG troops would need solid ground to land on and to make sure no lifts would land in Emulsion. After heavy firefights, Delta 1 was able to deploy Jack's homing beacon, which allowed the COG troops to deploy via the grind lifts inside the Locust City. Marcus and Dom then regrouped with Baird and Coltrane and the squad planned to infiltrate the palace. After advancing into the Locust capital, Delta 1 and the rest of the gears discovered that the Locusts were in the middle of a war with the Lambent. The Lambent seemed to be winning and taking over the city. After fighting their way into the palace, Delta 1 found a command center where they had Jack connect to a computer, which then played an intel file recorded by Adam Phoenix, Marcus's father. Adam explains how sinking Jacinto City would potentially end the war by flooding the Hollow with seawater and drowning all of the Locusts underground. Marcus then explained to the squad that they need to sink Jacinto before the Locust leave and to consider this a backup plan if they can't make it to the Queen. Marcus told Jack to send this data back to command and to tell them that they found another way to put the Locust down for good. The squad then continued their mission to find the Locust Queen. After fighting dozens of waves of Locust enemies, Delta 1 made their way to the throne room where Queen Mira waited patiently while guarded by Kadar Scourge. She then stood to address Delta 1 and inform them that they were the first and would be the last humans to ever enter the royal palace. Marcus then confronted Queen Mira about her plans to flood the Hollow in order to win the war against the Lambent. She confirmed her plans and reassured Delta 1 that despite them killing the Riftworm, they would still be able to sink Jacinto City as she sent an army to Jacinto in order to prevent the humans from sinking it themselves. Queen Mira then asked Marcus if he is truly the son of Professor Adam Phoenix and revealed that she personally knew his father and heard great things about his son. She then exited the throne room and ordered Scourge to kill Delta 1. Marcus ordered Baird and Coltrane to chase after Queen Mira while he and Dom fought Scourge. While engaged in a chainsaw duel, Marcus was able to destroy the last chainsaw that Scourge was wielding, leaving him unarmed and wounded. Scourge then summoned his Hydra mount into the throne room and escaped. Marcus and Dom regrouped with Baird and Cole, who were at the rear of the palace without Queen Mira. Baird revealed that she escaped on a Reaver. Dom suggested chasing after her, but Marcus ordered that they head back to Jacinto City and help prepare to sink it before the Locust can evacuate. Without proper transportation, Baird suggested using the 2 spare Reavers in the Reaver pens. As the squad approached the Reaver pens, Scourge and his Hydra attempted to destroy the bridge using the Hydra's rocket pod. Despite destroying the bridge, Delta 1 survived. Cole piloted one Reaver with Marcus manning the guns, while Baird piloted the other and Dom defending the rear. The squad then began to escape Nexus on the Reavers. Delta 1 made it to the surface and began making their way to Jacinto, but were met with a group of Reavers. After fighting them off, Scourge reappeared on his Hydra and started attacking. After dodging multiple rocket fire from the Hydra, the squad was able to shoot it down and kill Scourge. Delta 1 successfully landed in Reitman Base and reported to command, where Colonel Hoffman complimented Delta's efforts. Anya Stroud informed them that they were finalizing the logistics to sink Jacinto while still trying to evacuate the city and gears from the Hollow. Chairman Prescott then approached Marcus and admitted that his father, Professor Adam Phoenix, was right this whole time in his theory to sink Jacinto in order to destroy the Locust. The group was then interrupted by Locust forces breaching the base, causing a massive explosion. Anya alerted their presence as Delta Squad, joined by Colonel Hoffman, went outside to defend the base. Following the attack on the base, Delta regrouped with command, where Anya and Prescott revealed that they found an underground cavern near the Locust sinkhole, which they believed that a strategically placed lightmass bomb could cause Jacinto to sink. However, due to a Cedar and Nemesis infestation, they were unable to send a chopper down to deliver the bomb, requiring Delta to go back underground to clear the target area. Marcus ordered Baird and Cole to assist with the lightmass bomb while he and Dom head to the sinkhole. Marcus and Dom crossed the street from the Reitman base to the Archives building where a massive Locust battalion was stationed. After clearing the building and courtyard of enemies, they exited the rear of the Archives building at the parking lot in Cooper Street. As Marcus and Dom made their way closer to the target area, a Brumach shot down the building that they were going through, causing it to collapse. They managed to make their way to the Brumach and take out the pilot. They then hijacked the Brumach and used it to travel into the underground tunnel to clear the target area. After clearing hundreds of Locust enemies, Delta 1 invaded an underground city defended by turrets. After clearing the city entrance, a Corpser emerged from the tunnels to kill the hijacked Brumach, but Delta was able to fight and kill the Corpser with the Brumach. Delta then continued through the Locust city, killing hundreds of more Locusts. Around the corner was a beast barge which began firing at Delta. Delta fired back, shooting it down into a lake of emulsion. Delta then entered the target area where they saw a large underground cavern with 3 massive pillars in a lake of emulsion. Each pillar had stationed Cedars launching hundreds of Nemesis. Delta drove the Brumach into the emulsion lake and began to destroy the Nemesis and Cedars by destroying the main pillars. Despite heavy reinforcements of Reaver squadrons, Delta was able to repel the attack, open another sinkhole, and clear the area to allow for the King Raven to deploy the lightmass bomb. However, the Brumach driven by Marcus and Dom became infected with the emulsion and destroyed the King Raven carrying the lightmass bomb. Baird, who was on another King Raven, picked up Marcus and Dom as they escaped the Brumok. Initially defeated with the loss of the Lightmass bomb, the Brumok began to mutate, growing in size and changing in a grotesque appearance. Baird told Marcus that it looked like the Brumok became lambent, to which Marcus realized it was combustible due to the nature of the lambent, which exploded upon death. Marcus then appointed the lambent Brumok as their new bomb. With the Hammer of Dawn, Delta Squad opened fire on the lambent Brumok. After multiple strikes, the Brumok began to break apart, causing the King Ravens to evacuate. Upon its death, the emulsion-infected Brumok released a massive explosion that managed to sink Jacinto. The entire city sank, and the plateau's wall collapsed, allowing seawater to flood the hollows, drowning all of the Locust horde that remained in the inner hollow.